Hi, everyone. This is Vicente Cruz, Oakland Greens Event and Fundraising Coordinator. Look at that. I'm still not perfect, so as I can get on the Instagramsies as well. Welcome to the July, actually first meeting we've had actually in 2 months. We were sick. Whoops. Once. Yeah, they're getting rid of lives for people without a certain amount of followers on Instagram. Sick for May, and then for June, I had just had surgery, so we missed that stuff too. But now we are back, and again, it's our July meeting. And our first thing on the agenda, oh, is there anything we need to change or add to the agenda? I don't think so. Yeah, we good? Yeah. Oh, I can move that now.
I have a question.
Yes, Bill, go
The
ahead.
first item is about May Day. Um, I don't know if you're referring to the May Day Strong Network or
No, it was the actual actions that happened way back on May 1st.
okay. Well, then I would like just a minute to talk about what May Day Strong is doing in planning for Labor Day. Um, so
Okay, well, that could
just
be an
1 minute,
announcement,
really.
or you
That's
could
all.
do it in there too. We have an announcement section at the end, and then there's
Okay. We
actually,
can do it in announcements. Yeah.
but
Okay.
there's
Fine.
actually 30 minutes allotted for the discussion, and we have actually a lot of discussion items this particular month, aside from the fact that we're making up for 2 months. But
Right.
there was just a lot of stuff that has happened
Okay. I'll wait.
too. But sure. Anyway, and like I said, it might just naturally come in, like I said, 30 minutes. I bet you we can cover it in both if we have to for the recording and what have you. Um, Mayday report back is the first one from the actual Mayday events from May 1st of this year. Did anybody else go out besides me back on May 1st?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And then
And
there was
you're talking about the
also
action in Oakland now? Yeah.
yes, I was in Oakland. Yeah, there was one in San Francisco. There
Right.
was, a bunch too, as and then there was also we have on this agenda too. We're talking about the anti-ICE one, which was a great rally uh, in Fruitvale as well. Well, Bill, do you want to go first on your experience on May 1st? How was it?
Well, you know, I was just there for the rally at around the Fruitvale BART station. Um, it was relatively well attended. It was part of a national set of actions. It sort of relates to what I was mentioning just a moment ago. Um, and there was a decent turnout from some of the unions, at least. It was endorsed, I know, by the OEA uh, and I believe by the Labor Council. Um, it was fairly good mix racially, I thought, and that's really, I left at a certain point. My mobility is not great. There was a march, and I wasn't able to participate in that. Um, so all in all, I thought it was important, um, and I think there was a decent. Of course, things were somewhat different back in May, but I thought there was a decent Latino turnout. Considering the fears of ICE coming in and all that. So that's really all I have to say.
Oh, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I was there too, and I'm thinking that at the height of the rally, which was, probably halfway into it or more, there was probably 2,000 people, maybe even 3,000 people there. Um, and I noticed some of the media that reported, uh, some of the elected officials were some of the first speakers, and so I think the media just kind of covered them, and then they said, there were hundreds of people there, and they left, and they didn't hang around to see that it kept growing and kept growing and kept growing. Um, and the politicians were okay. There was Barbara Lee, there was Nikki Bass, and a couple others. Um, and then they had some church some people associated with churches, and they were actually fairly good for church people. In fact, there was one guy from a Muslim mosque, and he was really pretty fiery. So that was good. And then they had, activists, people with nonprofits and other activist affiliations, and they were really good. In fact, towards the end, one of them uh, was railing on about how both the Democrats and the Republicans are horrible. And, sure, Trump's the president, but all these Democrats put it in place. And I was just cracking up. It was great because it was like a sales pitch for us. And then I did go on the march. And of course, not everybody who was at the rally went on the march, but I'd say that certainly the majority did. And it was a good march, the usual chants. They had at one point, kind of about halfway, maybe halfway through the march, they had some kids that were like 10 years old, maybe 9 years old, maybe, that were leading the chants. So that was good. It was good, and a lot of energy, a lot of good spirit. And then when we got to the San Antonio Park, there was probably 20, 25 booths, mostly nonprofit groups that had materials, and that was good. But by then I was pooped out, so we went and got something to eat. But it was a good event. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was also my experience. And then there was also an small event right at City Hall as well at the same time. And then, of course, it was San Francisco as well. My experiences were the same thing. It seemed like it was very diverse. But I also think, rightly so, there was not a strong African diaspora presence there, but that's kind of seems to be the case. Same thing, like it was really difficult to get us out there for any of the Asian of two, because there's just been still a lot of divide. The people who follow you around at the corner store, they're the same people. So it's like, why you didn't come out for us? Why did we come out for you? Again, which is going to be kind of a theme about pettiness, and not realizing that we really do have to think about what binds us together. We can deal with that other bullshit later. I'm all for anyone. If you don't want to live around me, I don't give a fuck. Move, right? You can't tell me where to live, but you don't have to live here either. So I'm all for that shit. But there's a lot more that has us in common, especially when it comes around oppression. And so I think, we have to move past some of that stuff. I'm also not a big chanter. I did like the, get out of the two-party system, which is basically the same thing that I have. That's all I scream when I'm out at rallies now. It's like, oh, they should run for office. You should get them to run for office. All these people speaking on the stage, well, except for the Democrats, of course. Barbara Lee, I'm not a fan. She's a nice person. She's a cool person. But anyway, yeah. Orlando, were you out there too, or no, on May 1st?
Now, I was speaking. I was doing a speaking on pecuniary workers and how the workforce had a different impact from low income people, and it was just basically it's like our people, they want us as Black people to do work, but they don't realize the work is already done. We just got to follow the tools that were sharp and keep it going. So when it's like trying to reinvent something, during that time, it's like it's heartbreaking when they say Black people. My grandson Cambodian and Black, so how can I bring him to the protest and he talking about, hey man, Black Power? Then in April, he go from February to April to, hey, this Cambodian. So I'm just trying to get them to be, look, you're a human being. Whatever they want to do with all the race gaps or whatnot, let them do that. Just be yourself. And, to sum it up, I had a meeting with the Black Caucus today, the Green Party Black Caucus. And I was explaining to Greg that the training and knowledge and stuff that he helped me, not just because I'm Black, but being from a state delegate, from a national delegate, to getting elected to a national committee, to getting elected as being a national PNC speaker. When I'm joining this caucus, my resume is already there, but it doesn't have nothing to do with Black. So I think that people know who your color is. They know what you stand for. But I think that it's like dealing with Vicente. I'm learning about Rose Clemente. And I'm looking at the whole other different type of cultural levels, but it don't have nothing to do because we playing a race game. It's basically, man, get your work done. We know this is genocide against all people. White people go the same thing through a lot of whites. What people don't know is it's not white people. It's people from Germany, British, Poland, Irish, London. Just because of their skin color, everybody was deported over here from somewhere. But under America, we get that capping, and I don't know. To me, just keep being who we are, and whoever you believe in, a higher power or not, you keep it authentic, it's going to follow.
Well, yeah, like most things, it's very, very complicated because you want to keep your culture and also, I mean, as far as there's the one, too, that most places, especially, the closer you get to the equator and all that, they just have a lot of melanin in their skin, right? They're darker. They would have to be if you want to survive and not be burning from from skin cancer at a very young age, right? So I think that also that's why I say diaspora, because it's just so large, right? The human migrations, the way they went, all stemming from Africa, obviously, but the different routes that people took, again, keeps us all in diaspora. And it's only the so-called, the Europeans and stuff that, wanted to really, any sort of colonization seems to be negative. And yes, Bill, please.
Just quickly, I think, and this wasn't just about May Day. I mean, I think that in the May Day grouping made efforts in the sense of more unions, more groupings that might have, African American membership, but I don't know how much there were specific efforts to reach out. Greg mentioned the churches, but I'm not sure how many of them were specifically the African American churches. And just, BOP or APTP, I don't know what efforts, my bailiwick obviously is the union, so that I do know. But just as an interesting contrast, you saw the action this last week, during the Good Trouble Day, with the action that was initiated by APTP. And that had a very large percentage of African Americans and African American speakers. So, you see what results could be had if the effort is made to reach out to organizations like that.
Orlando, you had your hand?
Yeah, I'm just I had a brain for it, but I'll be confused. What's the difference between an African American and a Black person? Like when they go out and say African Americans, I assume they're talking about educated people that graduated, that went to university, got a master and a doctorate behind them, so they can come be a voice of a speak. But if you got a Black person who didn't graduate from merit, just went to Lane, and he's pushing or she's pushing, doesn't get the voice of that African American status. But Africa was taken over by a Roman general named Stanford Experiment. So how am I be African America was stole over here from another country, so I mean another situation. So how I'm gonna be an African American, and then how I'm gonna be black, and I'm from a tribe over here in this country that allegedly that it was Kush or Hammas, not to be used to the race. So I think that they should be more as individuals, because if you keep saying blacks and African Americans, most folks who watch the TV and the news, it water us down because people always saying you complaining, you want this, you want that, you want the poor hand me down. And that's not the case for the situation. We got all cultures that's billionaires, but what is the education that we're teaching our young folks and our grandkids to be like, hey, I'm the only African American in the Oakland Green Party. Get out of here. I'm the only black in the African, and get out of here. And people know what my color is. That's the richest thing on my body is my skin color. So people know who you are, but what can you do to show the example what a black or African American does? You know, what is the criteria? You know, did you go to jail or did you skip jail? You know, what kind of criteria that we keep putting on a generation of young folks that doesn't understand the complication of the colonizing, how the king and they brought the people over here in America backdoor to other people. Now they backdoor to them. Everybody came over here was criminals and thugs and so forth. We can go through that, but to me, I just think that people just need to respect us as who we are in our name, but identifying us as our skin color is using us as a racial puppet. You're a puppet. You black, I'm gonna get you over here so everybody else can follow mine. That's wrong. That's just my opinion. Not none against you, did.
Well, we definitely, we've had linguistics town halls about whether we should actually be identifying by color as well, too. I don't think we should, but I also, follow the river because the river knows where it's going. And right now, for me, African American and Black are just, they're interchangeable, right? Because also you could make the argument that at this point in our culture here in the United States, we are so far away from Africa. We would never be treating our own people the way we do. We would never sell fucking crack to our own people if we were really being what traditional African culture is. We would never do that to our people. We were actually wouldn't do it to anyone. That just isn't how. That's the same reason why it was easy to take over most of the native tribes where all Spanish came over because they just didn't have a concept of being evil to people. They didn't have that fucking idea of might make right. Like, oh, you're hungry, we feed you. Right. And that was way before Christ, right? All that shit. So I think, you use the language, it depends on who your audience is. And the people that think of Black like and think of monkey and those people are like uneducated racists and actual full-on Nazi fascists, right? So you're never going to change their mind. They can fucking think whatever they want. But I still think it's interchangeable, those two terms, for the majority of Americans, that an African American and a Black person are two. And I'm not even sure if they would consider, like, so I'm Puerto Rican, right? So first was the native tribe, the Taino tribe. And then after the slaves started coming, right after the colonization, they interchanged so much that our DNA is pretty much the same. Like, I mean, definitely Puerto Ricans have just as much African ancestry as well as Taino ancestry. And that was like, I know I have the video saved from John Hopkins doing it. I mean, there's a bunch of studies that talk about it. But anyway, so I think it's both. I don't think you should use animals for anything. And also, like I said, that's why I said an African diaspora, because I am not part of African culture per se. Like I have never lived in Africa, right? I probably have more Australian culture after living there for the time than I do, right, for Africa. But my ancestors, going back, are definitely from that diaspora. Same thing with the Taino people that were all the Greater Antilles or the Caribbean as we call it now, and so on and so forth. So I think that is too. Oh, I know what else too is the other thing that I was saying at all these rallies that I've added as well is that instead of, again, trying to get people to, and I'm going to contradict myself a little bit later for movie nights, but trying to ask someone come in and join our organization. And I think Bill brought this up, that there's already organizations doing great work. It's like, how do we reach out to them and how can we support you, especially more younger people's organizations, wherever that be, it would be DSA or wherever it is, and try to give, strong opinions. Because even, anti-police terror projects, ABT and all that stuff, so many of the organizations are just like we have here, and we've talked about that in our linguistics town halls too, the nonprofit organization, industrial complex, all this stuff too, where people are making mortgage payments from doing activist work. And is that, how is that okay? And I'm not talking about even Amy Goodman's and all that. I'm talking like, KPFA and things like that too, right? Even on a regular scale. Like, again, they're not paycheck to paycheck, but if they were to lose their job, they better find another one in 3 months, or then they're, out and, getting evicted and shit like that, right? But then, and we've had that conversation too, right? And again, this is stuff like at rallies, we say this at May Day, and it's all part around the labor as well. It's like everyone should have a living wage. Like there should be a very basic thing that I think that the planet could do sustainably. We just never really locked the smart people in a room and had them do that, right? And something again, and if anyone else wants to speak, please, because I'll keep on ranting. But what Orlando said is the education that they give to different groups, even these so-called middle-class white kids, right? They don't want them to fucking be wealthy, right? They want them to be the fucking consumers, to prop them up on their fucking lifestyle, right? You only get so far, right? You may get to be a CEO somewhere inside of a big, Hilton, some motherfucking corporation. Probably shouldn't shout out on the motherfuckers, but that's it, right? And you need to vote the way we want you to vote if we still have voting. I'm really going to be interested in the midterms. I'm sure that'll come up in the discussion after this. But again, back to the actual rally itself, I've just been really pulling those talking points, and every time I'm having discussions too, I think they should be teach-ins from that podium. Someone should be like, okay, we're going to split up. We got 2,000 people here. Oh my gosh. Okay, everybody grow up into groups of 10, maybe 15. You have that many. 15 gets, once you get, and you see this in county and even here too, when smaller your group, the easier it is to make decisions, right? You're faster. So you make decisions, and you come out with a mandate of teachings going, we need from each one of those groups someone who might be a candidate. So, and then people who would head that candidate's staff. And then you get all those candidates up, and then the big collective makes, anyway, that's just like a rough bullet point. But I feel like, and we have been on this for a while, that's what rallies should be, because hollering at these fools, if it would have worked, it would have worked already. Why do they care? As much as Bernie and all these motherfuckers are going around the country spouting all that fucking populist shit, he ain't motherfucking missing no mortgage payments on probably his 2 or 3 houses and whatever investments he has. AOC ain't missing no fucking meals. No threat of missing a meal, right? Because she leaves, she can write a book. Right? It's like, they're surviving on the current system. And I think what the Green Party and what we all say is we want new systems. Like, we want to fucking take it completely and let's start over, right? And use the tax dollars to benefit the people. Again, living wages to, my other argument I've said in the past, probably maybe even not enough though, even if they did that, if everyone had a living wage and fucking the junkies in houses, hey man, we got fucking fully staffed places for you to live, streets are clean, looking like fucking Japan. The lifestyle of Bezos isn't going to change. They're still going to get their private jet. Like, I don't understand. Like, then it gets back to, it's about control. It isn't about, it's just about wanting to control the populace. So, and I will stop with that. Anything else on that particular rally? None. Good. Okay. Now we're in more discussions, and we have also the anti-ICE rally in this too. The first one, I would hoping, and a lot of this really is also for content on our YouTube channel and social media in general. especially now that we don't have the website. The first thing I wanted to hear people's thoughts on this the SNAP restrictions. On this big beautiful bill. One of the things also they cut is food stamps. I mean, they're not really food stamps anymore. It's all electronic. But people know what I'm talking about, or no? We do.
Explain a little more.
So inside of the bill, make all of their cuts and again, it doesn't balance the budget, right? It doesn't at all. But the things that they cut out, again, probably to make people more desperate. And I think it's part of the whole plan that they really do want to declare martial law. They need that in order to keep Trump in power. They cut the benefits of SNAP, and they put restrictions on you can no longer buy soda.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The things that, like, you couldn't send your kid to the corner store to pick up a soda and chips as a treat for them on your SNAP benefit. You wouldn't be able to use food stamps for that. That was one of the things too. But they also banned a whole bunch of other things too that were actually healthy for you. Things too. You can't buy how Safeway or even Farmer Joe's up here too. Definitely shout out Farmer Joe's. Has like rotisserie chicken. We use it for movie nights. We buy already cooked chicken and some salads and bring all that stuff too. You can't use it for that either.
Really?
Yeah, you can't use it for any of that shit either. So what I'm thinking again, it's to make people desperate. But of course, where can you use it? McDonald's. McDonald's. They'll use it at Burger King. Again, trying to kill you slow, fucking hypertension, shit like that too. So I think it's always just like I said before, it's part of the larger thing just to control the populace and deeper down the rabbit hole to get people desperate and angry, and then it strands into violence at protests against cops, and then they can go, hey, we're now going to declare martial law, and we're going to suspend the Constitution, no more votes, nobody votes, and yeah, and where it goes from there. Anybody else? Come on now, all you great minds.
Genetic modified food is popular now.
Oh.
Genetic modified.
Well, I know they want to eliminate, any healthy oriented food programs in schools and things like that. So, sort of the same mentality.
Right. Well, and that ties into the Oakland Greens actual education plan, right? Where we would put cafeterias and chefs and cooks back into every school, and we would have at least 10. We actually had thought about 25%. We thought that was too lofty of a goal, but to get to there eventually, but have 10% of the food grown on campuses. So every campus has like a vegetable garden, enough to feed the school. At least 10% of the fresh vegetables that you will be feeding them would be grown right on site. And some of that is to teach local agriculture to kids too, because when everything falls the fuck apart, right? You better know how to grow tomatoes, right? You want to eat? You better know how to fucking slaughter a goat, milk a goat, make cheese, make butter, whatever, rabbits, different things too, like, and just having a fruit tree, avocado, like, you better, because there ain't no more grocery stores.
Kids, it's gonna be life or death survival, and
Absolutely.
And it's going to be heartbreaking because, like you were saying, a lot of us, that's why I said when it comes to this culture and race, let's get down to how we're going to survive this rebuild of the system. There's already a new world order, no matter what they find out, if Trump knew Epstein or not, what's going to happen? What's going to, it's like.
I think that matters. I'm sorry. Yeah. I think it matters. I don't think it'll change anything except for the midterms, because that is, and it can definitely be in this discussion as well, the split that's happening, because, okay, and I said this today, because it's become its own thing, people that actually consider themselves in the Make America Great Again movement now, like it's its own little thing, it's not the Tea Party anymore, it's its own little fascist thing, are very uneducated, right? They come from rural America. They're not very educated. But also in his support base were a lot of young, white, Christian college educated folks that the only reason they voted for him was over the abortion issue and, pedophilia and all, they're part of that whole movement, right? So now, which is good for the Green Party, I think, that's fucking divided them, right? When they were at, it wasn't CPAC, it was one of those other ultra religious conservative think tank conferences that they had, right? And it's all over the internet too. When she's like, "Oh, everybody, clap if you're not satisfied," and the whole place erupted, right? They're like, "No, because well, and rightly so. This is about pedophilia. This is about trafficking children.
Yes.
I don't give a fuck who's on the list."
But that's what I was getting to, is like, we have to be more cautious of the people that works for him, that have his mindset, than him. It's like, I've been tore up before he even got in office. But the people who took on his identity, that's in these different positions, the House, the Senate, the average person, them the folks we have to worry about, because their mindset is going to think it's another conspiracy, it's another hoax. You tried to assassinate him. He beat all these charges. He didn't get found guilty. He groping women. They were Epstein. They got pictures with him and Melania. She come because she was a model. She met him at the club on the sex date. And it's like, we have to watch the people that working with him, the people who got the mask off.
I am flabbergasted by it every day. I use humor to kill the numbness, and I say it too as we go sipping our Starbucks into fascism, right? I thought it would have already stopped, but like I said, I don't think it changes anything. Like, we would just might have a better chance of getting more local alternative political party candidates elected if we have confirmation of all these people that are on it. And I bet you there's people on it that, like, you were like, "Whoa, really?" That you would probably surprise you, because all those wealthy motherfuckers are all perverts, right? They're all fucking crazy as shit, right? Yes, Bill.
Yeah, just on this particular issue, it reminds us that it's hard to, talk about a singular Trump mindset. You would think, as you said, that most people, myself included, would assume, of course, he would be on the list, considering what he's boasted about. But it's not about the misogyny or the oppression of women. It's about this kind of mentality that is pervasive, at least in many sectors of those who support him, of the deep state. And, so, the many of the people who are criticizing him now, could care less about the rights of women. But, the idea is that this was he tried to sell it and his supporters as this big plot. And now, he's going against that. And so you see, divides. Not to say we can depend on this, but I do think we're going to see more and more divisions within his base. That said, he still is doing a lot of damage and hurting, large sections of the most vulnerable in the population. But there's no way you can tell from day to day which way Trump will roll, because everything is transactional to him. And if he can get a hotel built someplace, he'll name a country for him. So anyway, but it is curious. I think it took some of us somewhat by surprise that this has become such a divisive issue for his administration.
Well, go ahead, Greg. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even before the Epstein thing blew up, he was already fighting with Elon Musk, right? And so Musk left, and now Musk is talking about starting a party to hurt Trump and all that. So, you know, um, whoever said, Trump doesn't really care. I mean, that seems to be the MO that, Trump's gonna do what he does first to get into power. So that's how he got elected. And then once he's in power, he's gonna decide what's most uh, what suits his own direction, and so he's just going to go with that. And as long as he can stay in power, and so far, almost all the congressional people are sticking with him. So he's still going to get his bills passed. Now he might have trouble next year's elections, but between now and then, still is a long time. He's only been in office, what, 6 months or something. So he's still got to do a lot of damage, and it looks like he's just going to piss off a lot of people, but he's going to stay in power. So,
And
I mean, it'd be a miracle if he lost so much support that he could get impeached, right? But that'd be a miracle. So he's going to stay in power.
Right. Yeah. And I think the idea is to try to get martial law before the midterms. Right.
Yeah, maybe.
They're hoping like a good low to non-existent. They can't be too big and stuff for it, but I just to stay in power. No more elections, because like you said, they may lose it at the midterms. And I'm not so surprised at the division, because if there's anything we have learned throughout history, fascism, right? Because even in Germany, once you got rid of all the Jews, they started fighting amongst themselves, right? It's not even about so much. I mean, yes, it is about ethnicity and sexuality and gender and all that shit too. But once you take all that out, then they realize they don't like each other. It's something within them. They're insecure on their
Remember
own fucking self.
the Night of the Long Knives, Ernst Röhm and the SA, they were his most loyal. They would do anything for him. And Ernst, there's a rumor, I'm not sure it's true, that Ernst Röhm asked that Hitler shoot him himself. I mean, there were complicating factors, the question of homosexuality, all that stuff. But the fact was, once they became a problem, they had to be eliminated.
Right, no matter who they were. Right.
No matter who they were.
Absolutely. Right. That's the other thing too. We have too, Musk has that shit. And the only reason he hasn't already released it is because probably some of the people that give him money and for his companies and all that shit are also on that goddamn list. Right?
Yep.
So that's the only reason. But he has it. They gave him like unfettered access to all of it. You don't think he was just downloading data? I don't even want to read it. Just as much data as you can download onto my fucking servers as fast as you can. Everything. And we'll sort it out later. Right? Fucking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of terabytes, fucking zettabytes of data. Just fucking dump it. And we'll fucking start. And we'll have a computer. We'll have AI go through it. Right? And we'll tell it what we're looking for. And I'll put that in my pocket. Yeah, motherfucker, I got you. I got you.
Best hackers in the world.
Because he said it. He put it out on fucking Twitter, right? That Trump is on the list. Elon put that shit out there.
And he the AI king. So Trump don't want to. That's what I said in the beginning. He let Elon Musk go in there to run his media database. Elon Musk was downloading on the back door all the files. He got all our social securities. He got all that tech. He got the whole United States infrastructure when it comes to that. And
motherfucker knows I got a vasectomy.
Yeah.
He had to go in twice, and the right ball was a little bit bigger than the left. But yes, he's got all that shit on everybody. Just download. Absolutely. Like it was the worst fucking thing to get, but he's got it. And I'm like, come on, brother. Let it out. Let it all out. It's funny too, because part of, again, just a segue and just going right into it. The other one too is about the fact that he doesn't care about the courts. That's for sure. Because the next thing on the list is about like they just the comments that was made by his fucking attorney general about habeas corpus and like what habeas corpus actually is, as if it's a constitutional right of the president. No, no, let me stop you. That was fucking great. Let me stop you because that's not what it is. You're not even close. Don't you have a phone? You know, you could have Googled that shit before you answered. You gotta get a sip of water. Real quick, right, let me get right off camera. Oh, yes, habeas corpus is. Oh my gosh, she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. Again, stupid shit too. But again, that ties into what I've been saying to. I think that they want to declare martial law. I think like it's all because it's in Project 2025, right? That if they need to like fucking Hunger Game District, it's said yes, they should do that. Corner off sections in neighborhoods and keep them contained inside, right?
Well, so I do think though that the question of the 14th Amendment will be the strongest test case. And not that there haven't been other times when the Constitution was disregarded and attempts to undermine the 14th Amendment. In fact, one of the main cases was involving a U.S. citizen of Chinese background who lived in San Francisco. He went back to China. This was the late 19th century. And they tried to stop him from coming back in. But because he was born in the U.S., it went all the way to the Supreme Court and they backed it up. So to me, that I'm not saying it's the only case, but because it feels like we're living in a post constitutional society. But I'll be looking. I don't know when that will reach the Supreme Court, but I think that'll be, certainly a real indicator of how far Trump can get away with this.
He was kicking with Clarence Thompson. What was that, last week or something?
When was that? What?
Last week they said Clarence Thomas was in there when he had something at the White House and he don't supposed to be a part of it, but he was there. So he pretty much got it locked right now.
And didn't the Supreme Court kick it back down to the lower courts, the whole issue of birthright citizenship? They decided not to actually make a ruling on. Well, they ruled that it should go down to the lower courts and they should make a final decision.
Well, we'll see if they.
Isn't that that's what happened, right? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, I'll see if they try to force it back up at some point.
I think they will.
And it's ironic. It was the Republicans who were into this decentralized, let the states decide, and now, in response to Trump, that's how Trump is saying, I don't care what the state court or district courts say. It's my decision. It's a national decision. You can't overturn it.
Right, because he wants to be a little dictator. So,
right.
This is what happens when, what was it? I can't remember, the comedian said it too. It's like, man, if someone would have only been encouraging of Adolf's art, we could have avoided all of this shit. That's very good, Adolf. Gosh, man, I love the way you did those colors, right? Same thing. If somebody just would have been, here, it's okay, Donald, come here, give him a hug, like give him some love, like maybe we get out of all this mess. Fucking idiot. And the problem is, too, that again, a lot of the people around him are not. Like all those people that put together Project 2025 are not idiots. They are very, very strong fascists and well educated, right? Stuff too. But I don't think because I guess something's happening because a few people are coming back from Venezuela. I thought all those people were dead. I said it, all them motherfuckers is dead as soon as they got there. Maybe they never made it in fully processed into the main general pot, because I don't think you get out of there. I just don't think you do. or you're forced to join a gang when you're in, right, to survive in that particular prison. But so, I mean, there's something is happening, but again, it's like bare minimum, right? Like it's pretty much the bare minimum. Like it's this weird tug of war where it seems like the alarm bells aren't going off in people's heads as strongly as they should be, right? Like we haven't had call, and I've been doing that on social media, online all the time too. All these motherfuckers too, not one call for general strike, not a one, not a one. It's like, this is so like beyond an emergency. And like I said, and people are just sipping their Starbucks right into fascism. Don't seem to care because they're not in my neighborhood yet, right? And that's we really are living in that poem, right? They haven't come for me, so
Right.
And that's the other reason why I'm so strong. Like, oh boy, if you don't fucking get in these rallies and find some candidates and run some slates, you won't be able to have rallies anymore. They're going to stop it. They just, unless you're really willing to fight. But I don't think we're ready for that. We're definitely not organized enough. The fascists are way more organized.
There's a handful of groups, small groups calling for a general strike. I mean, that would really put shockwaves through the whole country. But the Indivisible and these other big groups, no, they're not embracing that. So, we'll see if that can do it. But it would take something on that level to shake it up. Just having these the rallies are good. They're bringing out people, but you need to have them do something more than just walk around in circles.
Well, I'm going to inject the thing I mentioned at the beginning because while it's not necessarily the ultimate answer, there was a fairly large meeting again of the May Day Strong coalition. If you're not familiar with it, it's been initiated by left labor groups, especially education groups, but it's broadening out. It's including the Federal Fund Network and other national unions besides the NEA and AFT. And I'm not saying rely on the bureaucrats by any means, but within this, there is a very radical left labor core. And they just had a meeting, I think it was a week or two ago in Chicago. 400 people came from around the country to follow up on the work they've done, including they were the main initiators of the May Day actions. And their plan is obviously to have something for Labor Day, but something that will continue on. And then they're going to propose having 20 or 30 regional meetings, not exclusively labor, but and then building for the possibility of mass strike actions, especially around the if it comes to the there we go. Okay, thank you. The wonders of technology. To the Sean Fain was talking about 2028, but they're talking about 2026 mass, possibly mass strikes. So we'll see. I mean, my point is that it's not as though nobody is talking about this, anyway. So we'll see. It's, to me, in contrast, and not that I want to, trash Indivisible or 5051. As Greg said, to their credit, they brought out a lot of people, and they haven't been exclusively electoralists. Some rallies are, I think, but this has a strategic plan, calling for mass action, for strikes, and so forth. So, to me, you don't see that out of Indivisible. Just more and more, we're unhappy or upset about what's going on, and you have to have a strategy.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of like trashing either, but I also don't like the idea of coddling. And I think it is very, very important to call people out. And yes, Orlando, your hand.
I think that it's the rallies and the agenda behind it. I think it's a perfect scenario. But I think the scenario to watch out for is the pilot program that he's using for these National Guards. So if you get these National Guards and he just declaring this is unlawful, that means you ain't going to Santa Rita, you're going to El Salvador. You're going to Guantanamo Bay. So I think, how can the people protect themselves with all the legal lawyers that can be there and can stand there and help these folks when you get these radicals that come after a peaceful protest and want to just start doing destruction? What about those who are going to fall victim, like 82-year-old man getting his green card, and now they deporting him to a whole nother country for what? So I just think we need to protect ourselves legally, especially with this new administration using this pilot program. LA was the biggest pilot program you can see is in Never. Once they finish with LA, imagine us coming to Oakland or San Francisco. And we got the federal building in our city.
Greg, you put your hand up? Well, yeah, we haven't really seen a lot of ICE in Oakland yet, right? They've been in San Francisco, surprisingly, and with great resistance. I mean, they've been, there's some people been throwing down. They're not fucking around, and I think that's what'll happen. It's the Dick Gregory bit about repression. The tea kettle and plug up that thing, and eventually it's going to blow, right? Yes. Anything else right now? We're going to move on. Yeah. All right. So, next one too, what I wanted to pick your brains on too is the American flag actually a symbol of freedom? Right. And if yes, why? If not, why? Right. Supposedly, but I didn't link it. Supposedly there's a YouTube video. Oh, I wonder if I saved it on our YouTube channel and all that. Does anyone know what I'm talking about too, about the flag and the United States flag in general? Yes? No? Maybe? No?
I'd say if you're a white property owning male, it might be. Otherwise, no, because that's when it was created. Back in the 18th century. So in the 18th century, they said, well, you got to be a white property owning male to be a full U.S. citizen. So everybody else, forget you.
Well, I put it in a somewhat different way. I think there are a number of questions involved. To who is the flag a symbol? Greg said, the obvious, but it's been a symbol for others, even if we think misguided. For example, many people who served in the military, including large numbers of people of color. It doesn't mean that they have the same feelings about it that, the demographics that Greg described. But I think there's a second, maybe a broader issue, flag or not, that is it worth trying to reclaim a kind of national culture that we know, is tied in with being a colonial settler state, a society built on racist capitalism and so forth. But it also is a society that, not allowed, but involved the abolitionist movement, all sorts of movements of resistance. Is it worth trying to reclaim that? Obviously, the right wants to do that. Their first big popular organization was the Tea Party groups. Make America Great Again. I'm not sure if Trump is aware of the history of that phrase, but anyway, probably not. I mean, how the role it played in the 30s and so forth. But the question is, do we find something in the national imagery, the national symbols, whether it be the flag, whether it be the 4th of July, and believe me, coming up this year with the 250th, I don't know what the term would be for that. Anyway, the 250th anniversary of, pardon me, the Declaration of Independence. That's going to, do we concede that or not? That will be the, exclusively the terrain of the right. I'm not sure. I'm not saying there's an easy answer. But if you look at, some of the things that people like Du Bois said, others, they weren't ready to concede that. Certainly Frederick Douglass wasn't. Despite the famous speech he made about the 4th of July. So I don't know. I mean, to me that, that's just a flag. I remember when it was trendy to burn flags, but, it's a broader issue.
Can I say something here?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
this reminds me that not too long ago, I think it was about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago or something, there was a little schoolgirl. She was like 9 or 10 years old. And of course, in their classroom, they have the Pledge of Allegiance every day. And one day, they started the Pledge of Allegiance, but she just stood there. She wouldn't put her hand over her heart and say anything. And teacher comes over and asks her, well, how come you're not saying the Pledge of Allegiance? We got our flag here, we're doing it. And she says, I'm not saying the pledge because the US is causing genocide. And of course, she got sent to the principal's office, right? And then the principal talked to her and she refused to say the pledge in front of the principal and she got kicked out or suspended or something. So, that's the same kind of thing. Whereas the flag can mean so many things to so many different people. But, if you think the flag represents current US policy, then, I think we got a big problem. If you think it means some kind of potential, some kind of ideals that might have been in the Declaration of Independence or whatever was the founding, okay, well, that's another. So it just means too many things to too many different people. And until this country gets its act together, I think it's better just to put it off in a corner.
Absolutely. And everybody say hi to Butch Ware, IG on Instagram page, listening.
Where salute.
Well, look at that. I only have a minute and a half remaining too. I got to restart it.
Yeah. 13 colonies and 50 states.
Yeah. Well, and that's not actually accurate either because Hawaii is not actually legally a state.
Hmm.
It has never conceded. It was annexed, but it never had conceded. The Queen never did. So it's not really.
So it's 49 states.
Yes. And probably the fucking Inuits of Alaska might have something else to say about Alaska as well. I wish I could have found that video, but and I don't know why it was such a big deal. I never stood for the Pledge of Allegiance, and it wasn't even, or at least when I was in elementary school, it wasn't some political statement over the rape, slavery, and murder that's
No, I agree.
side of that. It was because my family, what we discussed was I don't want to pledge some allegiance to an inanimate object, like to a flag, like thing's not real, like it's a piece of cloth. What the fuck are you talking about? That just seems very stupid to me. Like, oh, I'll pledge to my family, I mean, I'll fucking ride or die my family all day long, but for a flag, yeah, not so much. And in the town halls that we do, hey, what's up, Eric? A younger sibling. Is that maybe doing these things to these inanimate objects is actually detrimental to our society. Like, so part of the new system is that something we should be identifying. For me, all a flag would have simple like, oh, something that would hold on, I gotta restart IG, would symbolize like my favorite sports team, right? Like something, something of that nature, my favorite band,
Right.
things like that. So here, let me restart IG here. That was nice that fucking Butch or whoever runs their page came in, was hanging out. That's pretty cool.
Well, it really is a more modern phenomena is the national anthem. That that was, I'm trying to remember when, but it wasn't until the 20th century that became a big deal. Nobody ever played the national anthem. For one thing, it's unsingable for a lot of people. But now, yeah, it's this image. How do you build nationalist imagery? There's a very good book by a guy named Benedict Anderson called "Imagine Communities." And also the well-known historian Hobsbawm, of how you create these traditions, to try to bolster up, a system where things are not going well, or.
Well, isn't it that part of it too is like, aren't at least us as progressives, aren't we saying that nationalism is bad? Like, when we talk about white nationalism and all that stuff too, like maybe that's not, again, go down the rabbit hole. Maybe that's not part of the new system. Like, that shouldn't matter where you go. I mean, not saying don't be proud of your culture, right? Your cooking, your music, your art, your communities and societies, things that you have done. But having your country, again, that be your sole identity, like your main foundation identity, might not be such a good thing. Again, maybe your identity should be your family, right? And then culture and what traditions your family have, or, I mean, there's tons of ways to discuss it. But again, I think we've always, most progressives say nationalism is bad. Yes, Greg, please.
Well, we also have to distinguish.
Sorry, Greg. And
Sorry, my bad.
Got some friends that quite a while ago, probably in the 1970s or maybe 80s, they got rid of all their flags and stuff like that. And they had the Earth flag. So they have the Earth flag. So it's like, yeah, I got my family, I got my community, and then we got the planet Earth. But, nation states, I got, especially anarchists, anarchists don't want to have any nation states. So.
Absolutely. Yes, Bill.
Well, I'll point out that the nation and the nation state are not necessarily the same thing. The nation state is a very distinct construct. And if we equate the flag with the nation state, then no way we should in any way, give credibility. But if the nation is a sense of a shared culture, for all the failings of that culture, or a sense of appreciating other cultures, which, still major for all the hype that the MAGA people make. It really is so often cultures that are rooted in specific language groups. For example, if you assume a Mexican speaks Spanish, you're very, very wrong. They may know Spanish, but there are a lot of Mexicans who speak primarily indigenous languages. So, yeah, it's a matter of what you have some allegiance to. So, yeah, I agree, the Pledge of Allegiance. Although I will say that in the Labor Council, when it says at the end, liberty and justice for all, we always add someday.
Land of the free white male landowner, home of the slave. Absolutely. Anything? No. Moving on. Seeing none. And Dale's been awful quiet. The next one is, again, some of these I think are easy, but just wanting to see what our thoughts are on it. Does supporting Gaza mean you support Hamas? And you could also add on that too, does supporting Jewish people mean that you support Israel, the government itself?
You're
Dale,
asking me
unmute.
because we just moved by the flag issue, right? Which I don't
Correct.
think any of us should ever concede just to the fascists or the right wing in this country.
Right.
But you're asking me about Gaza?
Well, no, it's for everyone, but I just mentioned you hadn't given an opinion yet. That's all. But yeah, so
Well, it's like one big outdoor prison camp. What's it, 25 miles by 5 miles or something? And you're fenced in
Right.
there. So it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
kettling on a
And they
whole-
are doing that. So
Absolutely.
starving them to death, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to commit genocide. They want, instead of prima nocta, they're trying to just kill them out, like just get rid of them,
It's worth noting that even up to now, polls, both, well, certainly in the West Bank, but in Gaza as well, do not show a majority support for Hamas amongst Palestinians. But the fact that the kind of secular groups, there were far left groups, but Fatah was the best known, was more a left center kind of group, failed miserably. The Palestinian Authority, are lackeys for the Israelis. And so if a group is going to fight back, I'm not saying we support them politically, but you have to acknowledge that. And I know we have comrades in Gaza, and my feeling is you don't accept their politics, but you're shooting in the same direction as they are. You're unified, in the struggle. Though we can sort other things out as we go along, but
right.
So that's anyway.
Right. And well, one thing I think doesn't get mentioned enough, even in the so-called progressive media, that the October 7th, 2024 attack was in response to a September attack Israel had done on the West Bank. All those hostages, everything they did on the 7th was in response to something else that had happened that Israel had done. And I mean, you can play that game and go back, hundreds of years and stuff, right? And stuff. But that specific October 7th event was a retaliation to something that had happened before. And even the argument when they say, oh, well, we have to bomb civilians because because they're the fucking neighbors too. That's where they live. Like you're just killing all the people. And the freedom fighters happen to also be their neighbors. Right. So yeah, they're guerrilla fighters. They're not what we would call an actual military, right? I mean, they're fighting a guerrilla war. basically is what they're doing. They may be a little bit better equipped, but they're not what we would consider a conventional military, like that went rolling down the squeaky streets of DC for his birthday parade, right? That's not like that. That's not what it is. So I think that it gets lost that we don't have that as well. And I don't think it means that at all. It's like we're talking about just not committing genocide and innocent people dying, which on both sides, even like Bill had said too, you take a poll of just regular general people, they're all sick of the fucking fighting. Stop killing all of us, right?
By the way, if you don't watch, I mean, I would say watch, you should read also Electronic Intifada. But when they do have their, live interviews, most often I find them very informative. And in addition, they always have a kind of military update, a political update, and it's it shows that the Israeli army, the IDF, is not winning the war. They're killing a whole lot of people, and they're not, and we shouldn't take solace in the fact that so many. And by the way, I think Ralph Nader pointed this out, that the figures put out, even by Hamas, probably severely understate the number of people who've been killed. They're still saying like 60, 70,000, where probably it's more like 300,000. But anyway, so.
And that doesn't count the maiming, right? That doesn't count all the amputations. Doesn't count any of that shit.
So if you have a chance, they usually have them once a week or once every other week where they have a live show.
And they're also online. They're on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they also, I saw your hand too, Greg. They also support the general strikes when they come out too. Electronic Intifada pretty much does. Is one of those the few organizations that do. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty about whether support for Palestinians or Hamas or Israel or whatever entity, I mean, the UN and the International Criminal Court, for a long time, they figured out what is justifiable military action and what's not justifiable. And they both ruled that this is a genocide. It doesn't fit into the accepted uses of military action. And I think that alone should be enough to say, we're not interested in your picky definitions of whether support for the Palestinians, support for stopping the genocide constitutes support for Hamas. We're interested in what has been established as appropriate or inappropriate military action, and you are committing a genocide. You're not defending yourself, you're committing genocide. So I think, that's enough for me to say, don't try to trick me into these arguments about, you want to stop the genocide, that means you must support Hamas. No, we want to stop the genocide because you're committing murder.
That's a good one. A great take.
Yeah. And they're committing intentional murder.
Yeah.
That's generally what defines a genocide. Not just that you killed a lot of people, but that you did it with a clear intent. I'm half Armenian.
Right.
I'm somewhat familiar with the literature on this. So, and they, for quite a while, the Israelis tried to say, well, these are just, what was the term, collateral,
damage.
But now they're actually admitting, and not just the soldiers themselves, but yeah, we're doing this to, if we want to call it ethnic cleanse, we want to. Somebody said, I don't remember who it was, but they said, well, is this the same as the Holocaust? And somebody said, no, it's not exactly the same as the Holocaust, but it comes from the same tree, the same roots.
Well, is that just because there's not a rail route apparatus to
That's
move
right.
all the
It's not.
Palestinians
Yeah,
into a
that's
camp
right.
to kill them. That's the only
It-
reason it's
the
not
Germans, in their usual fashion, did it in a very
in a very efficient manner. Yes.
way, the German way.
Oh, they're going the wrong way. Yeah. Oh my gosh, completely too much. Gotta laugh to keep from crying. Um, anything else with here? No. And I'm going to actually skip the next one. But the one last one before we move on again is just a reminder, as much as we're all so fucking busy, is to try to make an effort to attend more meetings. I used to be really good about going to meetings, to Green Party meetings out of state, and I've since fallen off on that. I still stay up on their social media, but I have not attended a lot of meetings, so I'd like to get back in that. And then really more local ones. I actually have got on the mailing list of Bay Resistance. I'm going to go to some of their trainings. Again, I've offered to help in some of their pods as well. So just want that for the record. Anything else? Oh, seeing none. Now we're into the almost the ends recorded anyway. Now it's just the Green Party events. Can we get a report back from last Green Sunday?
Let's see. What was the last Green Sunday, Bill?
Richard Smith.
Oh, yeah.
It provoked actually quite a good debate, even though there were some things I disagreed with him. Richard Smith is a longtime activist based in New York City. He generally writes about China, also eco-socialism, but he put forward this program that he's floating out to various groups and individuals about a program for the 99%. Basically, he wants to, create a new party. And people asked him rightly, well, what role will the Greens play in that? And it wasn't so much he had a clear strategy, but at least it created a fairly lively discussion. How do we get beyond the Democrats? I was at the Socialism 2025 conference, and the biggest single forum workshop was precisely around that. It was a debate. And there were like at least 300 people. So yeah, and our next one is what we had originally intended for this month, but the speakers weren't available, which is a program around that's actually occurring in Contra Costa County about just transition away from the fossil fuel industry. If you haven't followed it, many refineries are closing down, which may sound great to us, but it also means a lot of people and communities, will have major problems. So
yeah, I used to live in Martinez. Yeah,
yeah,
all lose their jobs. Yeah, absolutely. All that stuff too. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I have one comment about our last Green Sunday, and then I got something to say about the upcoming one. So last Green Sunday, it was interesting that at a couple points, people in the audience were questioning, or maybe I wouldn't say arguing, but they were questioning about Richard's stance on some of the issues. And somebody said, "Well, have you read the Green Party platform?" And he confessed that he hadn't really read the Green Party platform, and so he looked it up on the website. At one point towards the end of the discussion and started reading parts of it. Said, "Oh, this is good. This is good." And by the end, he said, "Gee, I should read this. Maybe I'll end up being a Green."
Right. And two,
So I think we had a little victory.
right, because that was my complaint, was that he had not done a lot of research, and he didn't read that. I had posted it in the fucking chat room, in the chat for Zoom, and going, oh, well, you know how quickly, you know, the internet's not just for porn, and you could just actually have Googled that while you were sitting there talking to me, but I did it for you, and it's actually in the chat right now. And there was something else he asked too, where I just like, oh, I just Googled it and put the article. Oh, it was the Green Party stance on the war in Ukraine.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, the Green Party hadn't taken a stance." I'm like, "Bullshit! Don't you? That's a lie." And you don't. It's not even a lie because you don't even know, right? You've admitted you had not looked at did any research as far as that comes to come in here, and did not also realize how hard it is to start a political party, which kind of goes back into our last discussion item. It's like, why would you want to start a whole brand new party when there's already a bunch of political parties out there that are pretty viable and a bunch of smaller ones that could use your help if you have that much energy, right? And let me start. Go ahead, Orlando, please.
No, I was gonna say shout out to Laura Wells too, because she kicked it off. I think having people like you were saying, Vicente, that has that experience, and when you come talk to us, people just think that because we look like this, we got so much experience. It was very educational. To see him leave with a smile, that made me feel good.
He was taking a bunch of punches. He was definitely on the ropes by the end of it there. You know, like I said, Laura was bringing it hard. I was bringing it pretty hard. But as we always say too, it's like, oh, no one was attacking him personally. It was the policies we were talking about. Like, oh, you know, all your bullet points there are already in our 10 key values, man. I was like, really, the only debate we have, a lot of it too, is like, whereas here in Oakland, you know, and I gave him those examples, like, oh, we're here more for self-defense. We're not as, you know, pacifists, easy as it is, which we have a lot of them inside the Green Party too. It's like, we're not one, because he also said too that it's just about the environment. I'm like, no, definitely not just about the environment. You know, it never will. Maybe Greenpeace might be just about the environment. They're not the Green Party. That's like a whole different thing. They're not a political or an electoral politic organization. So that was my only real complaint about that. He didn't do a lot of research. Luckily, he did. You know, by the end, you know, he's like, "Oh wow, okay, thanks a lot for saying it." Took it like a champ, and it was one of the more livelier discussions for a Green Sunday, which I love.
Yeah, and one quick addition, which is that I think Richard is sort of symptomatic of a lot of people on the left. I said, you know, for the most part, this wasn't his focus for many years. He always was involved in the left that wanted to break from the Democratic Party, but he didn't write things like this. But we're living in a time now when more and more people are thinking, how can we get away from the Democratic Party? And it's frustrating when there are so many groups, some within DSA, some elsewhere, who talk about the need for independent political action and don't mention the Greens. You know, to his credit, Howie Hawkins, continually reminds people of this. We're not saying we're the only party that can do it, but we're implementing things that should be a major part of how to move forward on this. And by the way, Howie was on the panel at the Socialism Conference.
I mentioned I wanted to say one thing about next month's program, Bill. There's a little thing that's come up on the scheduling end. If you can stay on after we're finished with the Oakland Greens meeting, I just want to. It only take a minute to mention it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Nice. Anything else on July? Oh, and seeing none, moving on. It's our Oakland Greens events. So the last movie night that we did was the Stanford Experiment, and like the last Green Sunday, had a very good discussion afterwards. That was one of the better after movie discussions. I wouldn't say one of the better movies. It was very difficult to watch. It's a very difficult movie to watch. And then a fun part about it too, someone had mentioned like stereotype too that I taught in the movies, and I just said, yeah, well, that's like a black thing, and it's run by a black man. So if you know, like, if I think it's a good space in between that's gonna indirect uh, information, I'm gonna do it. And then also, I'm a firm believer in you should react how you're supposed to react. One of the things I give Michael Moore credit for, I'm not always a complete fan of his movies, but he is a really good movie maker in the sense that you're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to think. It's going to cover all of your senses and your emotions through his movie. He's really good about that. And I think a movie, if you have that and you're supposed to laugh, and it makes you feel that way, you don't have to hold back that laughter, let it out. I mean, the person wants to do it. So yeah, it was very, very fun. And then of course, our this month, sorry, which next week movie, isn't it next week? I think it's next week, is Rabbit Proof Fence, which I had rescheduled a bunch of times because it's just such a good movie. And so I'm really, really looking forward to being there for that one too. And, like I said, we had to miss that because of surgery, and then the one before that, sickness. Do you have any questions, anyone, on the movie? Oh, I know what else I want to do for the tape. We don't have the website anymore, or access to the Eventbrite page yet. So everything is through our Facebook page. So if you go to Facebook Oakland Greens, it is in our events. You can go there, and of course it goes out on our mailing list as well. This is going to be a really good movie. If you can make it out, you should come. Any questions? Seeing none, moving on. So now we are actually, if you hadn't known, I've already made 2026 and 2027 movies. So for the next year, 2026, we have Civil War for January, The Princess Bride for February. March was going to be one, but I changed it. Doesn't matter even to. It's going to be Homestead. April is V for Vendetta. The sense of theme. May is Sugarcane. June is Don't Look Up. Again, do you sense a theme? July is Network from 1976. August is No Other Land. September is Rosewood. October is Conspiracy, which that is actually a callback. I'm pretty sure we saw Conspiracy our first year. And that is the 2026 movie list.
I used to show Rosewood to my students.
It's a good movie.
Yep.
It's a real thing that happened, but the movie is a dramatization.
Yeah.
A very big dramatization, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good movie. Actually, I've quoted Rosewood in the past in interviews and then online too, where there's a scene where one of the fascists is he's in the fight and hanging all these niggas is because that motherfucker's got a piano, right? Look at him playing on piano. He's like, he's a music teacher. You don't even know how to play the piano. He goes, that's not the point. Nigga got one and I don't. And that scene and that quote stuck with me about how undereducated racist fascists can actually be. And actually, you know what? Now that I'm at theme, I wonder if you can actually call them racist, like fascist maybe, but racism still to me is the ability to control a certain segment of the population. And those undereducated motherfuckers couldn't control my fucking bladder. So I don't think that calling them racist maybe just fascists in general. Anyway, that's like, I digress. But that quote had definitely stuck with me to show how they, it's so about their own insecurity, right? He's got one, I don't. Don't matter, I don't know how to play. Nobody in my family was a musician, anything. We're all carpenters. Like, what the fuck? Not a music bone in your family's body for generations back. If you're pissed off because you ain't got a piano, it's just something that stuck with me. It's a really good movie.
The other thing about the movie is how racist, violent perspectives can be passed on from one generation, to the next.
Oh, yes, the young boy.
The young boy, yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And you know what else too, even in that one too, even though again it's really a dramatization, the spark of the premise of the movie used to happen a lot. In fact, even in Bill Burr, when he hosted Saturday Night Live, in his monologue, he said literally, and all you white women, when you occasionally start dipping in the chocolate and you got caught, you said it was rape. Yeah, you did. You did that. You fucking, as soon as you like got caught with it, the brother got hung, and you were like, oh no, and you got sympathy. You fucking did that shit.
Right.
Fucking with your heated seat Escalade, motherfucker. You know. I wish I could remember. There was another really good movie, and it was a World War One army trial where the black soldier had gotten with a European, a French woman or an English woman, and they got caught. And even though she literally said that it was consensual, they still convicted him of rape and hung him and killed him. It was a really good movie. I think, and it was a really good play too, if I remember. Any questions about 2026? I'll have 2027 later. I'm not gonna have to, but it's, basically we're gonna do in 2027. There's a couple of movies I want to do. I was thinking Blazing Saddles, History of the World Part One, which we didn't get to in one of our series, and also The Life of Brian. I wanted to, but and maybe even The Meaning of Life.
Always look on the bright side of
The
life.
one I quote from that movie though is the one, and I quoted it today at breakfast, even where they're about to crucify Brian, and the Jewish couple is distraught, making sure that they were promised they would only get crucified in an all Jewish section. Didn't want any Gentiles crucified next to him. I thought, I don't know, that's just again, one of those things that just sticks with me, cracks me the fuck up every time. I know it's coming in the movie, but makes me laugh. Like it tickles me to all hell too. And just the way he says it too. He's very, very posh, and they're actually on the cross. It was fucking hilarious.
And the classic scene when they're in the tunnel trying to kidnap the wife of Pilate, and the two groups meet, and they say, "We are the Judean National People's Front, and you for
the
the
people
Front
friend
must unite against the enemy." The
The
national
letters just written, same
Right.
acronym, just absolutely. Love that one too. Yes. Oh my gosh. And of course, like I think probably the most popular one is 404, very roughly. Biggest Dickus and
How big is
Continental
Dickus?
Buttocks. Anyone else feeling like a little chuckle? Yeah, it is very, very funny. And that comes from trying to add a few more comedies to the list, is because I had been, the first couple of years we had been accused of me being a little too serious. Like the movies were just a little too painful. Sometimes there's too many in a row. Just getting you
Yeah,
can't
look what you're doing this year. Look how much pain you caused this year.
watch them. Yeah, absolutely. It was good. I was sick and had surgery, cutting some things out. Well, and also again, Rabbit Proof Fence, great, incredible movie and all that. It's not a fun movie. It's tough. It's still not as bad as Zone of Interest. I think that is
Uh,
probably the most psychologically traumatic movie of this year that we did. That one
yeah.
was really difficult.
That's
Stanford Experiment
Stanford.
was a close second.
Yeah, that one.
The documentary would have been worse. Like I didn't,
Mm,
I was toying like which one should I show, and I landed on the movie instead, because when I watched the documentary, it was like I couldn't go to bed. Like it's that
mm.
the actual documentary is really disturbing, because they have a lot of live, recordings of what happened, and the movie doesn't do it justice about how brutal and those motherfuckers were. Right? Like, oh man, I would have been. They would have been. Yeah. Anyway.
You know what would be a good movie? I don't know if it, it can be streamed. I know is this John Sayles movie Amigos, and it's about something that certainly doesn't get enough attention about the occupation of the Philippines and the
Oh,
um, uh, so it didn't. I was a little surprised that when it came through. I forget how many years ago. Um, there wasn't much in the way of distribution, especially considering there's a fairly big, very big Filipino community. Anyway, but if you check it out, you can watch it and see if you like it.
I think.
You know, especially after this year's mime troupe. This year's mime troupe was about 1/3 about the Filipinos. So
Right. Well, that's a big question now, big concern. Although I think there's still some kind of I don't want to say legal protection, but in I haven't heard in terms of efforts to deport Filipinos, but in terms of places like nursing homes and other facilities where there's a very large percentage of Filipino workforce, people are very nervous about.
Oh, no.
yeah. Oh yeah. First they came for the Latinos and then the Filipinos, and then after that they're taking away birthright citizenship. So who knows?
Right. Thought I had it, but I don't think that was it. Three Amigos. You sure that's what it's called too, right?
Amigo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amigos or Amigo? Just one?
Maybe it's Amigo. Anyway, John Sayles is the director. Do you see it?
Theos?
John Sayles. He's the one that made a one and all those movies. Maybe it's Amigo. Did you see it there?
At the turn of the 19th century, the United States declared war on Spain.
That's
This
it.
conflict brought them to another nation,
Hold on.
halfway around the world. But they decided to stay. At the turn of the 19th century, the United States declared war on Spain. This conflict brought them to another nation.
Turn it up.
Oh,
halfway
okay.
around.
There it is.
But they decided.
You are such a whiz. No sooner said than it appears on our screen.
Oh, I know what else is wrong.
I need Garrison.
Hold on.
Tell him we're staying here to
His village from the Ladrones. He's still head man. If there's trouble, it's his head.
Kailangan ka namin sa loob kasama ng mga Amerikano, pero bilang kaibigan ng revolusyon.
Ask him what he knows about this.
The video go.
His own brother is the jefe of the insurrectos.
The gloves are coming off, gentlemen. We have done with the carrot for the moment, and it is time to employ the stick. You're getting pretty comfortable here.
I have to live with these people.
No, Lieutenant! You gotta make war on these people! Look at it go!
We can watch it. We can watch it on our own. We can find the trailer.
Very good, very good.
All right.
By the way, my son just married a Filipina, but I've avoided asking much about her family's politics, just in case it could stir up some issues. So
Let me save that so I have it. Watch later. I will see about getting that movie. That looks like it's a good one.
Yep, it is.
Okay. Anything else on those? No, next is announcements. You have any announcements? We already did them. Okay, well, that's going to be the end of our recorded session. We're going to have a closed Zoom finish to the ending of the meetings. And this would still be open to the public for the recording. If you want to be privy to these, all you have to do is come to the meeting. It's the third Sunday every month on Zoom, 6:30 p.m. You can see it on Facebook. You can email oaklandgreenparty@gmail.com, and I can send you the link. Anyone have anything else? If not, this is Vicente Cruz, Oakland Greens Event and Fundraising Coordinator, and thank you very much, and we will see you next month and at the movie night.